So guys, Fortnite had a new update this past Tuesday, and with this new update, we got 5 brand new augments that I want to go over in this video and explain exactly what they can be used for, how good they are, and if you guys should actually consider getting them. Now, obviously, they've been out for a few days, and I've been able to actually go into game and test them quite a bit. Something that I find very interesting about these augments is that they're all something that we've had in the game relatively similarly before, whether that's in a new LTM game mode, whether that's in an item that used to be in the game, or a feature. This is really good because these augments are going to be stuff that people are somewhat familiar with, but that they also know how to use in a competitive environment. Now, be sure to use code Sonata in the Fortnite item shop if you guys do want to support me. Let's hop right into this video. So the first brand new augment that you guys definitely may have heard of, this is going to be Peely's Plunder. Now pretty much what this augment implies is that you're going to receive a treasure map that will lead you to buried treasure. Now this is very similar to the season 8 item back from chapter 1. That was the item that would basically give you a map and would lead you to treasure that you could dig up very well and you could get a lot of good loot from it. This is very similar as a matter of fact. It's a really solid way to get really good loot in terms of the early game and the mid game. Now obviously if you are in the end game, I wouldn't recommend that you just decide to take this augment first. Peely's Plunder is really good to get high tiers of loot very quickly if you need to. So I would recommend you try to use this in the early game if you don't have very good loot, or after you've just left your POI and you're in the mid game and you're looking to upgrade your loot in order to prepare for the end game. Now this is pretty self-explanatory. This augment is very solid. I don't think it's that unbalanced. I think it's actually very, very good. If you see this, I'd highly recommend you get it, unless obviously you find one of the better augments, stuff like Chug Gunner, and overall just better augments in general that you guys can probably guess. Now, the second augment that came out with this update is going to be Shotgun Striker. Now, Shotgun Striker is a pretty self-explanatory augment as well. This one basically says that your shotgun fire will give you Siphon upon hitting opponents. Now, what I think about this augment is that it's really good for overall competitive fighting. It's also very good for all competitive players, and pretty much everybody who is able to get this augment should be using it. Now, as you guys know, a shotgun is the main way of fighting in competitive Fortnite. It's pretty much the primary way of actually dealing damage to your opponent during stuff like box fights and the endgame. But I think what's really good about this is that in those fights, if you have this augment, not only will you be at an advantage because you're getting Siphon, you're also going to be able to save shields and medical supplies for the rest of the game, including the endgame. Now that's actually a really big thing, especially in game modes like duos. I'd recommend that at least one of you, if not both of you, can try to get this augment. Because if you guys both have it, then you're going to be able to absolutely get stacked on the different amounts of shield that you have. You're not going to be able to need to waste as many more resources. It's a very valuable augment for those of you that want to play for the endgame and try to actually win. And not to mention that it's also going to help you out once you're actually in the endgame. For example, if you're scuffed on low ground, or if you're moving around the endgame and you're low health, and you get a really big pump shot on somebody, it's going to be very helpful for your health and you're going to be able to actually recover better. That's why I think that this is going to make endgames a lot more competitive, because actually eliminating opponents that have this augment is going to be a lot more difficult. Now, the third augment is going to be known as Rarity Check. This augment says that you're supposed to get Siphon upon eliminations with common and uncommon weapons. Now, this is similar to the Shotgun Striker augment because you're going to be getting Siphon obviously after you deal damage and get eliminations. But if you're in arena and competitive, you obviously get Siphon normally. But on top of this Siphon normally, you're going to get even more Siphon. And I think it's very valuable that it's just with common and uncommon weapons. What I think this does is that it's going to be very, very good for overall arena and competitive environments, because it gives you bonus shield during stuff like the early game where you're using lower tier weapons, and this can easily give you a really good advantage over a POI. Considering that you're in the early game, you're going to most likely have a common or uncommon weapon, and the more eliminations you get with it, the more successful you're going to be throughout your actual game. I think that we're going to start to see a strategy where competitive players are going to be carrying all gold and purple loadouts. However, some of the competitive players will decide to just carry a small uncommon or common weapon in order to actually use this feature. Because if you deal a killing blow with the weapon, that's pretty much all you need in order to actually get Siphon. So overall, Rarity Check's pretty solid for those of you in the early game of arena and competitive tournaments. Definitely consider using it. I would highly recommend this one. Now, the next augment is going to be known as Zero Chance. Now, this is pretty much the most useless augment because I think that it's actually the hardest to get, but it's still pretty valuable if you actually can get the effects of it. Now, this augment temporarily gives you the 0-point dash ability each time you break an enemy's shield. And if you guys don't remember, the 0-point dash ability was back in Chapter 2 Season 5 when you broke those little crystals, you were able to basically hit your jump button twice and then dash forward through the air. Now, I think the reason that this is the most useless augment is because it's every time you break an enemy's shield. And I think that it's still useful for mid-game stuff, because if you're actually breaking an enemy's shield and you crack them, and then you decide to really 0-point dash towards them, it's a very valuable way of actually W keying. I really don't think it's that practical that you're actually going to be using the 0-point ability every single time, because let's say that you break their shield when they're actually in a box, and you're in a box next to them or something, it's going to be tough to actually exploit in there, considering that the 0-point ability isn't the greatest for that. However, it can still be done. I've seen people do very good exploits with the 0-point dash ability. I think that this augment still has its uses. I don't think it's completely pointless, and it's not like you can really do much about it. It's just that if you see a better augment, I recommend you take that one rather than this. And now the last augment is going to be known as Danger Hero. What this augment does is that it briefly regenerates your health and gains your movement speed when your shield breaks. So for example, if you have the previous augment and you're fighting somebody who has the Danger Hero augment, it's pretty much going to cancel out, and you're going to be able to run away faster, you're going to be able to regenerate health slowly. It's not really going to be too much of an issue. That's why I think that these two are pretty much the most useless. However, Danger Hero is really good for the early game because it can help you escape and disengage from a POI if you're in an early game fight that you don't want to be in. It's also really good that I would recommend that you guys get this augment early and then use it throughout the rest of the game. It will help very much so during late game stages when you're trying to rotate. Let's say somebody cracks you and you need to run as fast as possible. This will give you an increase in health and movement speed. That's why I think Danger Hero is a pretty solid one compared to the previous one, but it's still not the best. I would still recommend it for those of you who don't have many better options. Overall, guys, those are really the best augments that I want to go over for this video. I'm really happy with the way that Fortnite is actually updating the game right now. Augment system is absolutely fantastic. I think that it's one of the best additions to the game for a while. I really enjoyed making this video because using all these augments really made me understand how good competitive players are going to be able to start to get. But that's about it for this video, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.